Rolling?
All right, so we got the hood open. That's your 2350 engine with a 2250 computer on it. Did you change the IMAP sensor and all that when you got it, or had it been changed, or the intake manifold sensor and lots of EGR tune-up stuff I talk about?
Did an EGR tune-up.
Looks like you got a new IMAP.
It was not changed. Everything was manufacturer ready. So nothing was changed. Anything that you had described before in videos like EGR tune-up was just big importance to me. Let's knock it out. I mean, it needed to be done. So 250 or 260,000 mile engine, I think it was ready for it anyway.
Okay.
So.
And then it looks like you put a boost gauge.
Yes.
Boost gauge. You put a pyro gauge in the dash.
Pyro and boost, right.
Boy, you're a glutton for punishment, aren't you?
Right.
Doing all that crap that's on Rawze2.
Just dig into it.
That's
the idea.
All right. The truck has 300.
Truck's got 366 on it.
Okay.
Yep.
Have the shocks been replaced? It doesn't look like it.
I haven't replaced them.
All the paint is original on the shocks. I like to change my shocks every 250,000 miles. They're like $60 a piece.
Now,
it's good practice.
I don't know. And again,
I would recommend it. I don't think they're bad right now, but
they sprayed everything.
Yeah.
So
you don't
it's kind
know.
of hard to tell. I don't. It probably hasn't been changed. But
so when you get a chance to change that stuff, over this next few months, or I wouldn't say it's an emergency, unless we find one bad. You said you changed the power steering fluid, and the filter is right here. You changed the filter.
Filter's been changed. Fluid's been flushed.
Every 250,000 miles max. And you put a new Davco filter in. This is a 10 micron. That's really good. 7 or 10. I tell people to run a 7 or a 10 micron filter in their Davco or in their fuel water separator because, especially with the new biodiesels, you get asphaltene buildup in the tanks and the black sludge in the bottom of the tanks if you don't want a really fine micron filter. So that helps out a lot. Looks like you just put it on here. Now, I questioned you when you came here because as soon as you opened your hood the first time, I'm like, hey, you got no fuel in here. It's air. You're sucking air.
That's right.
But we turn the key and it actually comes up. It's just because you just
It is literally, like I said, I typically, just for machinery days, I write on everything just to keep them up. And so it was literally replaced.
Yeah, always be aware that if you don't ever see fuel up here, just make sure you're not sucking any air around your O-ring or something because especially with these common rail injector engines with the 30 or 40,000 psi of fuel pressure, air in that system is like razor knives to butter on the injector tips. I mean, any air at those pressures as it hits the tips of those injectors literally will cut into the injectors. It's really harmful to them, so you don't really want any air in the system. The fuel pump, I don't know if the fuel pump, I always recommend replacing the guts of the fuel pump every 400,000. It's only 260, so keep that in mind for next year, obviously. So far, it looks pretty good. Cut.
Rolling?
So, you changed your air filter?
Yes.
Did you coolant test it or anything?
I did not test coolant yet. Obviously, they put the coolant in when they first.
So they put new coolant in, or
they put new coolant in,
or did they reuse somebody's old coolant?
No, it is current. It is new coolant. I did see that. So roughly 3,500 miles on that coolant right now.
Red coolant's usually good for about 300,000 or 400,000. So just check it once a year, make sure the pH is good. You said you had to change this. That's pretty common. Those things break. The oil cap too. That's pretty common for them to crack. And then, of course, they get broken as well when somebody tries to change the crankcase filter.
My assumption was that's what it looked like.
And that'll crack it and break it. You said you put the maintenance-free crankcase filter in it. That's good. That way you don't have to worry about that. I see some problems with your air conditioning system. Your low-pressure side, your high-pressure side, your fittings are all missing the caps. And so dirt's going to get in there, and all your Schrader valves are going to go bad. So if they aren't already, next time you go to charge it or have to fork on it you're gonna have to clean that really well and pray that it doesn't. I would just assume Schrader valves are bad next time you have to service this thing. Pull them off, put new Schrader valves in, put taps on it next time around.
One thing when it did show up again, they're taking an engine, throwing in a frame. It works. Let's go and get out of here. So. Things weren't zip tied. They did have a lot of hardware that was missing or loose, so it was a rust job. No doubt about it.
Bad. I mean, they zip tied things up.
Well, that was me.
Okay, well, at least
it's back.
The time
so it's and again, I mean, we had the caps ordered, wrong caps, but no, you're right. Definitely needs to be addressed.
And you did your overhead set, your valve adjustment set. You did your ABS and you checked all this. You barred it by hand. You made sure it turned good. Air dryer, usually 200,000-300,000 miles. Sometimes you'll need a new dryer element in it. But usually you can tell by right here. If you just crack you do your daily check, and you just crack your lines. moisture coming out. As soon as you start to see a little bit of moisture in that, that's when you change that.
On their initial trip down, so they pulled the whole rig down. It was about 750 miles or so. And one of the first things I got, they had dropped the truck. I seen about 2 hours after it was shut off. I immediately went and drained the air tanks just out of curiosity. Okay. So no moisture came out of it.
That's good.
Which, again, I didn't change the filter. I haven't serviced anything on the dryer side of it yet. The only thing I did do, because it was it kept rebuilding pressure over and over and over.
Okay.
So I thought governor was leaking just a little bit. It straightened out, and there was I'm assuming to be a regulator line that comes back to
probably
little leak, small leak on that. So it just kept recycling over and over.
Okay.
But other than that, no, it hasn't been serviced.
Okay. Well, so far I like it. What about your batteries? They look good.
Batteries look good. All match, no corrosion. They're dirty.
Match, no corrosion. That's good. A little bit of dirt.
Yep, they are dirty. So, at one point, not sure how long ago, it had a little bit of grease on it.
Yeah, I would put some.
It's definitely due for some more grease.
I would spray some heavy-duty marine spray or something on there, like you said, or get some, some tar or some grease or something put on these turns. They're going to corrode like mad. They're pretty dry. Down there where you're at, down there near the coast. I don't know if you're down near the coast in Louisiana where you're at.
Not too bad. I mean, we're close, but we're not Rust Belt.
You're not Rust Belt.
No.
It wants to sit this way or that way, doesn't it?
It kind of. I mean, it's a great trick. It's a freak line.
Trick.
Let's see. It should settle
there it goes.
in, and then we go in.
Okay, that was good.
Good lead.
Cut.
Rolling?
All right, and I like the catwalk. It's nice and light. Doesn't look like you have any bearings or anything. Looks like maybe it had a Qualcomm on it one time.
It was a road lock, I believe. Let's see
Okay.
They had a roof bearing, I believe.
Here's a problem I see already. You want to grab this with the camera, kind of come in. These are recap tires. They're not the best in the world, but you can see they're starting to separate right here. See that clear line across there, crack? Mm-hmm. You see it right here? It's coming up. I don't know if I would trust that. Maybe it's okay, but I really, really do not like recaps on the truck. Trailer is one thing, the truck's bad. Recap like this goes, it could take this out, it could take this out, it could really do a lot of damage. It could damage the underside of the skirt of the trailer. I'm just not a fan of them, especially in the South. In the summertime, I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of them we see just in the 30-mile stretch from here to downtown every year. And it's just insane. So I really don't like recaps. But,
no, I mean, look,
that might be a future investment pretty soon.
So that's good input, believe me. It's certainly something to think about because, I see them on the side, road gators, that's what we call them.
Yeah.
So I see them all over the highway. I'd imagine when that cap cuts loose, it's going to be ugly.
It causes a lot more damage than the money you save putting them on when they do go.
A lot of revolutions per minute. If you're running 65, it's probably going to be ugly. So.
And then you said, do you run heavy a lot? Are you planning on running heavy a lot or just light stuff? Or
it's,
you're going to run sod. That sounds pretty heavy.
It's going to be sod. So typically a full load is going to be 18 pallets, which would gross you very near 80,000.
Okay, so you're going to want some fuel efficient tires too.
Correct.
Very fuel efficient tires, and these obviously aren't going to be that fuel
These
efficient.
are whatever.
They're not even fuel efficient recaps. So I would recommend a set of M710s or something equivalent, maybe Bridgestone or one of the other, or maybe a Goodyear or one of the other brands. That's Bridgestone there, or used to be Bridgestone. But we run the M710s. We love them. We get really good fuel mileage out of them. We get about 450,000 miles out of a set of ours on our truck, which is really good life. All right, shocks look good, but like I said, you might want to start considering changing them this year. At some point, you don't have any. It looks like all the insides of your hubs, or your brake drums and all that are dry, so it doesn't look like there's any oil leaks, hub leaks, anything like that. Seal leaks. Airbags look pretty good still. A lot of these joints are really dry. It looks like that U-joint there is dry. These grease fittings on the brake S-cams and all that are dry. It looks like it's been under-greased. There's not enough grease on it.
When you do grease these joints, because they have been greased, I went ahead and re-greased the whole truck.
Yeah.
Now, what are you putting in as far as, are you having enough to actually come out around the cap?
I flush them because if you just barely put enough in to start to see something come out, what happens after about 4 or 5 or 6 times of doing that, the grease inside starts to dry up and clump up.
Okay, so you're actually,
I flushed
you
them a
want to
little
push
bit.
the old,
That's just
bring new.
That's my opinion. I got 1,000,000 miles on every one of my components.
I mean, it's proven,
And
so it works.
They're really good shape. It's not
Okay.
like they're worn out and I'm just ignoring it. I've actually tested a lot of the stuff I've got on my truck by now.
No, and that works. I mean,
And I flushed
valuable.
I flushed my stuff really well. I like to see a little extra grease come out.
Okay.
One thing to keep in mind is never mix the green grease with the red grease, because the green is a high temp and it creates a clay if you do. So don't ever mix those. You can, I get sometimes I'll go to Northern Tool and I'll get that yellow clear grease that they sell, and I'll use that sometimes, and sometimes I'll go get some really nice good red quality grease.
Right.
It depends on what my mood is, I guess, but if I had to make a recommendation, I would say use a good quality grease.
So you just don't want to mix, is it high and a low temp?
A high temp grease and regular axle grease.
Okay.
Because it can make a clay. There is some incompatibilities with some types, so be careful of that. And like I said, if you don't grease it enough, what happens is it dries up and you get clumps inside. And then when you do grease it, it doesn't flush the dried up stuff, and it creates this little area where it can't retain enough. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, your drive line's quite dry. Let's say the torsion bars look good. The bushings are all looking. And this truck don't have a lot of miles on it. I took my plugs like this, and I used some Flexi-Seal in the paint can and put it on with a brush, and I sealed all this really well on my truck, because they tend to get water in them after 2 or 3 or 4 years. You might want to consider doing some of that to some of your plug harnesses and stuff. And I see that. As far as the alignment goes, I see that this one and this one and this one are unshimmed, but this one has a lot of shims, okay? Which means that somebody has taken this axle right here and they have shifted it forward, okay? Now, I don't know, in reference to the two, where that sets these. You might want to have that checked, or you might want to check that. But that's kind of bad. If they brought this forward to make it parallel, in my opinion, it's kind of bad. You actually want it a little bit in. You want it about 1/8 of an inch closer on this side, not further away. It looks like they shimmed it further away, maybe to get it straight. I don't know what's going on, but just check it. You want it about 1/8 of an inch closer in on this side, because to correct for the crown on the road. Some of the crown on the road will be done with the camber alignment, the caster alignment in the front.
Right.
It's 2 degrees higher on one side than the other, but it's usually not enough. It usually still pulls. But if you take this here and make it another 1/8 of an inch closer, it'll stop that pull.
So you're on the, say, right lane.
What you're going to do is you're going to cause, instead of the wear from the crown on the road being on the outer right corner edge of that steer tire out there, that's usually what wears the outer edge of the passenger steer tire on these trucks. Instead of that wear being there all the time, you'll divide the wear among 8 tires for that crown on the road. And because those are the tires that wear the quickest and always you have to replace more often.
Right.
Like I say, I've got mine set that way, and I still get a good 400,000 out of my tires. And I get a good 120 to 160 out of my steers. Being a highway truck, that's pretty decent, especially with a ProStar being 12,300 bobtail with full tanks.
Now, are you seeing, again, me being green, are those shims, is that factory?
It might be, I don't know, but I would just check this to make sure that that's where it's at.
As you're driving,
it's either parallel, or like I said, if it was my truck, I would check this, and the first thing I would do if I saw that it was parallel and in alignment, I would jack this about 1/8 of an inch. Or if it was already in 1/8 of an inch, I'd leave it alone. Okay. It's just the way I like to run my trucks, because I just don't like letting go of the steering wheel and the thing hitting the ditch.
I know, and I'm the same way. And actually, right now, if you let go in the right lane, it will drift.
Yeah, it's
not hard. It's gonna have a light.
Yeah, when they do the computer alignment and they make these perfectly straight, that's what you always get. And like I said, you're always doing this with the wheel, just a slight bit to correct that, and that slight bit is loading that outer edge of that passenger steer tire and causing more wear on it than it should get. And this being a day cab and you doing a lot of city driving, I'm just going to tell you right now, when you make a right turn, you're going to always make a hard right turn, because you're fighting the corner of that intersection, and you're going from right lane to right lane. When you make a left turn, you're going around the entire intersection over like this.
Gradual.
So when you make left turns, you're going to make left turns a lot more gently, okay, by default.
Right.
This being a city truck, or locally operated truck. So what's going to happen is when you turn and wheel hard, it's going to dig into the pavement as you're turning, and you're really heavy. Those steer tires are going to dig into the pavement hard. Okay, and it's going to scrub them. So you're going to get outer passenger side edge wall wear. Okay, and you're going to get inner driver side edge wall wear because they're both going to lean inwards like this. So when you make a right turn, you're going to turn harder. It's going to put more wear on them than when you make left turns.
Right.
So you'll always get, usually on day cab trucks or on city operated trucks, you'll always get excessive wear on the outer passenger and on the inner steer. And that's kind of normal. If the truck's in good alignment, you shouldn't really have to replace the tire, except at maybe 100,000 miles or 80,000 miles. Depending on how much really city you're doing. You're doing a lot of city, you're going to wear them out quicker.
Sure.
That's kind of normal. So if you see other wear, like if you get river wear in the middle or you get all these other wears, then okay, maybe you got an alignment issue somewhere else. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Just warning you up front that you'll probably see a little bit of that.
No,
being
it
a city
definitely
truck.
does. So your recommendation, let's take the alignment, let's break it up between.
That's what I like to do on my
8
truck.
rather than beat on.
Yeah, because you just beat up on your steers when these things perfect.
No, that makes.
When you could just divide some of that wear out here.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And that way you get that less pull. You got, looks like mirror to rears. You said it's 355?
355.
That's a good rearing ratio to have. It's due for the, it's probably due for the hub bearings to be, retorqued every $250,000 is what I recommend. It's a lot of people have problems with edge wear. You just got these tires on here, so you can't tell, and you haven't driven it anywhere.
Right. I mean, it's so mismatched. I mean, you got a brand new or nearly new, and you've got war, and it's difficult to see anything right now.
Yep. And if you're driving it really hard, because you're lead foot, what I'll tell you on these Freightliners especially, they like to get an odd step wear pattern in the drive tires on this passenger side and the front set of drives, and on that back rear. And what happens is you'll put your hand across here, and the middle lugs, like this set of lugs right here, one set in from the outside, this set of lugs will look normal with normal wear, and then you'll get one lug that's like lower than the rest, and you get a bunch of normal ones, and then one lower than the rest, and they'll have sharp edges on them, like they'll have sharp rolled edges on them. That's how hard you're pressing your pedal on the fuel pedal, because what's happening is these Freightliners, the frame in them gets a little bit of a twist in them when you're really getting on them hard, and it causes these tires to give a little bit on the pavement.
So you basically unloading just a hair, and it's
yeah, because the way it's designed, what happens is these axles like to do this,
right,
and it digs in and it causes this odd wear pattern. So if you're riding it really hard, you'll see that. If you're not driving it really hard, you won't see nearly as much.
Okay.
Especially when the tires are new. So a lot of people ask me, "How come I got this weird? It's the shocks. It's this. They blame 1,000 things except." Wait a minute, it just might be just the twist in the truck. And these like to do that. These Cascadias like to do that. Like I say, they're Cavalier, not a Camaro. Drive it gently, drive it nice. It'll be good to you. Your fifth wheel, it looks like you've got a little arrow here. It's a Holland fifth wheel. You can see the little arrow here is, you got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it looks like somebody has adjusted it from 1 up to 3. So at some point you might want to just check this with a fifth wheel test kingpin. Your DOT says you're allowed to have 3/8 of an inch play in it. Okay. Just check it before you put a trailer on it, just to make sure, because you just bought the truck.
Correct.
You don't know how worn it is, and somebody's obviously had to adjust it. Just make sure it's in spec, because the last thing you want is to know that it's okay and run a few trailers, and all of a sudden one goes whoop down the freeway.
No, we don't need that. We don't need that.
So I would definitely, if it was, just buying it and seeing that somebody's tweaked on it, And
yeah, absolutely.
I would just test it once, just so that I knew what I had when I was sitting behind the wheel. Just for safety. Looks pretty good. Airbag looked good on this side. The fuel tank, the fuel tank's got a little dent in it right there. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
It's got one here. It's got a little bit here. Actually, they replaced this tank.
Yeah, it looks like maybe somebody hit it or got banged, or
I'm thinking this was from maybe an LKQ truck.
Oh, whatever. Somebody put a different tank on it than was original.
When I originally saw this truck, before it was
and these,
prettied up.
Yeah. What are these, 90s?
This
80s?
Is,
these are small tanks.
You've got an 80 here and a 90 over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That'll save you some weight for running daytime stuff.
Think a short haul.
Yeah.
You need something too large.
Yeah. Airbags still look good. The shocks obviously are original, you can tell.
Yeah.
But I say I'd go through and change all the shocks on it at 250, 300,000. You know, I tend to do that on my truck, and it kind of makes a difference in the ride. You know, yeah, they're not wore out, but every time I've done it on my truck, I can feel it. I'm like, it's not just my head. It's like, wow, it is smoother. You know, they were.
And you know, for me,
good a shape.
All these sounds, how it rides, everything's so new.
There.
Yeah, I think somebody.
Yeah, that's fine.
Somebody
it's a truck.
Cut a little too hard at some point.
Somebody painted over all your cans, so you don't know if it's been hard serviced. You know if he serviced this or not?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
So that's something that's going to probably be coming up pretty soon.
Correct.
You know, you said you did the jar tune-up, you did the doser and all that on the front there. You said you messed with it.
Yes.
Now you're going to need to do this down here just to make sure. The NOx sensors on these 2250 and 2350 engines are good for about 250,000 miles, and then they start to read wrong. So if you start getting a little bit of NOx codes or NOx emissions errors on it with the 300,000 on it now, you know, it's not a bad investment to change a NOx sensor to see if that's what it is. Keep the old for a spare. If you think that might be part of it, and just clean the depth injector, you know, that's down there. Clean the decomp tube. Do an inspection. Pull the DPF DLC. Have them baked somewhere. You know, and do that at some point, maybe during the next 6 months or so, you know, within the next year, just to make sure you don't have problems. You should always do this stuff before you have the side of the road problems, before you have the check engine lights all the time.
Right.
Because by that time, these things are in dire straits, and it's really hard to recover from that. It's really hard to get it back, all that undone. But if you do it, you get on top of it while they're still, you know, somewhat working good. You know, just do it once every couple of years or once every year, whatever. You know, every 100 to 200,000 miles, depending on how much you idle and how much, you know, you might be clogging it up. And stay on top, then you don't have those problems.
I'd certainly rather figure it out now, or fix it in the driveway than fix it on the side of the highway. Get a ticket for it, whatever the case may be. You're spending the money, you might as well do it correctly and get it over with.
Crack there from stress. Like I say, the caps are not on the AC like they should be. They're missing these two little. And like I say, you know, you're gonna have to probably replace those next time you service this, just to be safe. This thing is broken. You said you already saw that.
Yep.
You know, you got good boots. Looks like turbo has not been overheated. You can see that it's not been really, really hot here in its midsection. That's a good sign. Looks like they did a pretty good job sewing everything up, with zip ties and all that. But like I say, you did some of that too. I see this pipe here. I don't know if you want to see this on the camera. This pipe here is just starting to rust out on you. It's not going to take much more and it's going to break or rust out and it's going to start getting leaky. I would suggest before it gets that bad, you know, drain your coolant or go get another pipe and have it spare and paint it. But either way, I would, if it was mine, I'd just drain the coolant. I would take this pipe off. I would sand it down to the primer anyway, and I would pour 15 it really well. Like put some core seal on it, let it sit for a few hours, a couple coats of that, and then pour 15 over the top of that, and just get that pipe where I never have to work on it again, you know, and never have to worry about it rusting.
They're really thin, right? You said that.
Those pipes are very thin, yes, and once you start to see the rust, it doesn't take much, they start leaking.
Right.
Yeah, this pipe tends to do that. This one's in good shape though. This pipe here tends to do that. It looks like it could use repainting or something, so if you ever have to work around here or whatever, I would just leave it in place and just put a coat of paint on it.
Sure.
You know, if you can get up in there with a little brush, just to try to help protect them. But other than that, I don't see any exhaust leaks. I don't see any problems there. You're missing one of your tow hooks. You noticed that, right?
Yeah, one apparently somebody needed more than we did.
Yeah, and then your brakes look good in the front. Everything's no oil leaks, none of that stuff. Hood shock's in good shape.
Hood shock's in good shape.
Okay. These like to vibrate and shear these bolts and stuff after, you know, they get old, so just keep an eye on that.
Okay.
And don't bang your hood really hard when it comes open, because it puts a lot of stress on the charge air cooler and stuff and crack it.
Okay.
So just be careful of that too. Did you do that with the zip tie?
I actually did that on the way here.
I was like,
I noticed that touching. I always check everything.
That's a stress point, you know, in the engine. And
yeah.
It's like, wow, that's kind of odd.
I noticed the hose is actually rubbing on a support.
Yeah, that's probably it's probably because this engine part, maybe.
It may need to be rolled. If you rotated the hose, it would actually get it off with a natural bend. but it was actually touching, so it was a light rub mark. I had a guy at one of the truck stops. I just went ahead and got a couple of zip ties just for the heck of it.
Have an issue with that. You know what I would do? I would take this piece and I would drop it down here. This bracket.
Swap it up, drop it down, and get it totally away from it.
I would drop it to the bottom side of this. It looks like you have clearance for it, no problem. That might be what maybe all that's wrong with it. Somebody put this on backwards.
It may have.
They put things like it's supposed to be like this.
Yeah, that's most likely what it is.
That's probably what's wrong. So that I would fix that. That's going to create a problem later. And you also have this one here rubbing a little bit, or wanting to.
Which one do you have?
Right here in this corner. This one here. Right there. Maybe put a zip tie on that. This looks pretty good though.
Tried to isolate as much of it as I could.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Keep
especially around the alternator and all that. It's nice tight. I always use a Flexi-Seal around my, especially the positive posts and all that, so that it doesn't corrode.
Eliminate corrosion.
Yeah. Suspension looks good. If you take your finger and you put it right here, like a third of the way from the U-joint up, about right here, you can stick your finger in between the two, nice and find out how far your finger will go in. Mine goes about this far, and then do the same thing to the other side. So you away from it. You see if the springs are getting worn.
So you're actually checking.
The springs get worn. Yeah, they wear and they get weakened.
Okay.
So I'm going to do the same thing here. And this one feels really good. I've seen some where one side has a really big gap, and you can tell. You can also see it in the truck sometimes start to lean.
That's a good idea.
That's a good indicator.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
This spring is starting to weaken and go bad.
Okay.
So those look really good. Like I say, I don't see a lot with this truck. It's fairly new. Fuses. I don't know if the fuses look good and all that.
All right, so we stop here. I like that. We like that.
A little bit of dirt under there, but yeah, that's a spare key. Looks like somebody stuck a spare key in there. That's a pretty obvious place to put one, right?
I'm glad you found it.
Huh?
I'm glad you found it.
Now this one has a hydraulic clutch.
Yes.